Hi, everybody. I am so excited for you to be here today. And we are going to get started in, I don't know, now. Now's a good time.
Give him a minute.
Well, we'll do a sort of our soft start here where I'm going to, at the highest level, say hello. Super excited to have you here. I'm hanging out with Dano in his office. We talked about different places to do this. We could both be in our own Zoom square, but we live close enough where this made sense for me to come in person. And then we were trying to find the right place to do it, which was like a conference room. And then that felt wrong. And so it ended up being here a la Tiny Desk concert. But instead we have the Tiny Desk chats.
Dallas promised I don't have to sing.
No singing.
You're welcome.
And so I'm going to do a little bit of overview explaining the Trust Chats Live, why I'm sitting here with Dano, and then we're just going to jump in. So Trust Chats Live, I tried out a Trust Chats Live last year, which was just some of the common themes that people have talked to me about in their day-to-day. How do you get feedback to a boss? What do we do about gossip at work? How does it impact our relationships? And I found it was a lot more Trust Chat Dallas talking at people than actually chatting with someone else. And so I wanted to switch it up, and we are doing a series where I'm going to be sitting down with some lovely people who have been leaders in the sustainability space, and we're going to be talking about kind of leadership in a different way, not necessarily what they've accomplished, because folks like Dano and others who I'll be talking with have accomplished a lot, but more about like what is going on the inside, sort of the inner world of leadership. So that's the focus for these sessions. And I was a little nervous to do this because I was thinking, this is my headspace. I really like thinking about inner world. I'm like constantly in that headspace myself, probably why I was a psychology major. And so I reached out to Dana and was like, hey, do you want to do this thing with me? A little bit of an overview. Here's an example of questions. And I said, let's set up a meeting so I could talk to you about it. And I had a pitch. I was going to like be ready to explain to Dano why I think he should do this with me. And I was like ready. I had my notes. And Dano jumps on. He's like, okay, when do we record?
Are we recording now?
Are we recording? And I was like, no, I'm here to convince you. And he's like, done, convinced. And then I started off with saying it was going to be a softball. We're just going to like talk about light things like talk to me about your shadow self, to which Dano immediately jumped in and talked about a shadow self. So maybe we'll get there today also. But first I want to introduce Dano. For those who don't know him, he's the Chief Sustainability Officer and Executive Director of Campus Planning at Tufts University. We met when Dano was at Smith College, and while Dano was at Smith, also led a lot on the campus planning side. But one of the things that we talk a lot about and sort of in our field here is the decarbonization work that Dano did at Smith. So beyond that, I love picking up the phone and talking with Dano, anything from systems thinking, change management. What is that bird I just heard in the trees? Because Dano knows all the bird and bird calls. It's really impressive. And things like that. So with that, Dano, thank you so much for joining.
It's so nice to be here, and it's so nice to see so many people that I know who have joined us. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Okay, so I am going to jump back to that first question that I asked you on that day when you were like, are we recording? Because I loved your response. And again, this is an opportunity where Dana and I are going to have a conversation back and forth because it allows for it to be more fun. So when you think about your shadow self and that part that you bring to work, what is it?
Now I have to remember what I said to you back then that made an impression. So I think I probably led with, I think of both for myself and for other people that you almost always like our strengths and weaknesses are the same thing. And we bring both of those things. And I think I even talked about my mother. Mom, hopefully you're not on this. But My mom is elderly. She tells you exactly what she thinks. She's sort of extraordinarily judgmental. And for a long time, I sort of thought that of that as like that was problematic. And it is sometimes problematic, but in fact, when I think about like what happens when I'm like channeling my mom, it's also judgment. It's also the ability to like sort things and to sort, what's important from what's not important in kind of a quick way.
Right.
And so it's really important to sort of like monitor like, am I being really judgmental right now, or am I applying judgment?
Right.
And
Yeah.
those are really different things.
Right.
But I think we all like, and I can name all kinds of things that I bring to work that are like, that have strength, and they have like the shadow side of it is like a deep weakness, that we all like, right? And we all bring those things.
And what's going on in your head as you're trying to walk that line, right? Because I agree. I'm thinking about, what I brought to the table in my shadow side is I have this part of myself wondering, did I take up too much space? Did I share like how much am I sharing? And I know that that comes from my background and basically scanning the surroundings. Like how am I showing up? Am I in a space that's like safe, socially safe? And so I will spend a lot of time after a meeting or after a situation kind of evaluating how that went to a point of diminishing returns, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when I am in a role of a facilitator and I have clear rules and where I'm supposed to jump in and how I'm supposed to be doing something, that is substantially more comfortable for me than when there isn't those clear guardrails, and I will overprocess that.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that I've learned. It is helpful to be thoughtful and intentional and think about my contributions, but I have to be able to be cognizant of not letting that kind of rule my inner dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is practice. I mean, I think you and I are both extroverts, which is why we're just gonna get on this thing. We're just gonna like jabber away. It's gonna be no problem.
Yeah.
Right. But for me, it's like I am such an extrovert. I process everything out loud. Okay, so that's great. Sometimes that's great for my team because they know what's on my mind.
Right.
Because I am in real time sharing everything that is going through my head, and they know kind of how I'm thinking about things. But as I've taken on newer and higher levels of leadership, positional authority starts to interfere with that, because they start saying, "Oh, Dano just said that we should do X, Y, Z." And I'm like, no, I'm just thinking. Like, this wasn't an instruction, this wasn't a command, this was just like, so it's taken a level of practice to say, like, okay, you kind of have to have that awareness of how is this having an impact on other people? How much airtime are you taking up? Is it the right amount of airtime, or is it too much airtime?
Yeah. So when did you find yourself having that needing to turn that on? Like your external processing being something that was impacting your team or impacting a situation?
I'm not sure that I knew exactly when to turn it on, but I think I got feedback from people that said you need to say less.
Inside thoughts.
Inside thoughts, yeah. Right.
Thoughts.
Some of these thoughts are appropriate for this meeting, and some of those thoughts are not appropriate. Right.
Okay.
And then I had to adopt practices that would enable me shutting up. Right. So
that's amazing. Like, what's your practice?
It's good to have a pad and a pen so that if I have a thought that I think is intrusive, I'm just going to write that down and save it for later.
Right.
And that enables me to not interrupt you later.
Great. Write that down, folks. For anyone that's like, I do that too. Pen, paper. No. And I think there's everyone who I've worked with that does really impressive leadership, and they have a hack. It's not that they don't have these challenges or these things going on. It's just that like there is some sort of either metacognition going on where you're like watching yourself doing that thing and you're like, I need to turn on my hack right now because that's what's going to be in the way. Like mine is like sitting on my hands from grad school. I was like the person who put my hand up all the time, and I was like, okay, gotta sit on my hand. This is how I can like monitor my participation. But I also I think there's this balance that we all need to make that I am working on is, and this is one of the questions for you, is like, where do you still notice yourself holding back or editing yourself at work? So it sounds in this case like editing yourself at work maybe is the work to be able to be like, I don't need to say that out loud. Oh, that could have been an inside thought too. But like, is there anything else that you're seeing that you're like, I wish I would have said something, or man, like, why did I act that way? Like, or respond in that way.
I definitely have the man, why did I act that way? And usually this has evolved a lot. Like at this point, can I go a half step back and tell a story?
Yeah,
Okay.
once upon a time.
So once upon a time, I was working overseas. I was living in London and I was working for an organization that was a global organization. And the office I was working in was in the UK. And so there were two dynamics there. One, I was working in an office that was largely British work culture. And it turns out British work culture is really different than American work culture.
Right.
Same language,
Right.
really different stylistically. The second thing is I was working in an organization that was working in 47 countries. And so every time you were we were using Skype. So every time you were on the Skype at the time, you were talking to somebody who maybe English wasn't their first language, or maybe English was their first language, but it was a really different English.
Yeah.
Or maybe it just had a different set of cultural assumptions under it, or maybe like,
right.
So you just were constantly doing all this work around who am I in this conversation, and are we actually communicating right now, or are we just like saying words at each other?
Right.
So that was like 4 years of like highly conscious work.
Exhausting, like emotional labor.
It's exhausting. And it was funny because I think for the first 3 years, I kept trying to sort of assimilate to like British work culture and like, here are the things you should do and you shouldn't do. And then at some point I landed on, and I'd gotten promoted in this organization like 3 or 4 times. So in 4 years, like, and by the time I left, I was supervising things that I had no business supervising, which was hilarious. And I think I realized it's like, oh, it's actually kind of like, and there weren't very many Americans.
Right.
And American culture, believe it or not, is pretty singular when you get into an international space. We take up a lot of airtime. We have a lot of privilege that we like put into those spaces. Some of that was really useful and it helped me get things done and push things through like any number of like quagmires. And so it was this like in year 4, it was like, oh, actually I have to be kind of more myself, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But it took 3 years to get there. So when I like returned to the US and I was working back in the US, it was like I had a different relationship to my own, like, how am I being myself and where is that effective and where is that not effective?
Right. A little bit of the reverse culture shock.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think in my time in the Peace Corps, there was the country I was in, English was the business and school language. Patois was if you want to get in on any good joke, you have to speak it. So I figured I learned a few jokes.
And telling jokes in foreign languages is like the last thing because it's.
I mean, I honestly think
hard.
my like demonstrative like this, they were laughing maybe at me more than with me, but
physical comedy can solve
totally.
a world of problems.
But we are technically speaking the same language, but we're saying different things is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And the emotional labor of needing to try to meet folks where they're at. And I think in a leadership role, it gave me deep empathy for people who have to code switch all the time to be connected with like the dominant culture. Because yes, there's like the American, like, but I would say probably white, affluent business culture, but we got a lot of other cultures hanging out that is not just this mainstream. And I think we call it mainstream because we have so many people that are trying to adapt and code switch so they can have that conversation in the way that is probably more kind of accepted in the business world or in the higher ed world or you name it. But for me, like I think about this was just like incoming. This was the empathy, like I didn't realize I had this privilege of not needing to code switch to feel like a belonging or seen or like to be approved, and being able to recognize that I did have a lot to bring, but I wasn't saying it the right way and I had to adjust it. And finally I got there, made me realize how much emotional labor other people have to use every single day.
So it's a really interesting question about code switching
Mhm.
because part of it, there's a lot of people who have to use it every single day, and that's like really important to
Yeah.
existing.
Yeah.
And then there's like, right, I get to use code switching in an entirely different way,
Me too.
right?
Yeah.
Which is, and particularly like in higher ed, the faculty and the staff and the students, it's like different, those are different conversations.
Right.
Right. And like code switching across those can be really effective.
Right. If I'm hanging out with someone with like a British accent too long, I will start doing a British accent. It's just like, it is one of those, it's slightly embarrassing. Like, I mean, Caribbean, where I was in the Peace Corps, like I started having that like, hey, but, and just like, it was how I connected. People appreciate. I didn't even realize it was doing it, but that was the case. And I just ran a workshop with folks back in St. Lucia, where my Peace Corps piece was, and they all joined, and I immediately locked in. Yeah. And they're like, "You still have island life in you," and I was like, "I do." But it happened so quickly because those instincts like kicked in, and it's really interesting because, and I'm like curious out there, like I think that has allowed, when I think about you and your leadership skill set and your ability to kind of like hone in on an individual level with people, I think that's a huge skill set, and it's in many ways some of these adaptive pieces that you've picked up along the way.
Yeah, I mean, because sometimes, I mean, you could think about it as code switching. I mean, another way to think about it is just what are people's interests? Like, what are their interests?
Right.
And so, faculty have really different interests than students than do staff.
Right.
And so it's a little bit of like trying to think, well, what am I trying to get done here? But what are your interests, and can I align those things? And I think I spend a lot of my time, even now, like unconsciously, that's kind of what I'm doing.
Well, that happened to be the first time we ever did something together.
What did we do?
This is like a vault here. My memory is a vault. So I will remind you, the first time we did anything together was we did a co-presentation at ASHE, The Art of Conversation. Yep. And I think it was interesting because the handful of the people who are part of that workshop was like, so you fake interest. And we were like, both of us were like, no, like I am sincerely interested.
I'm genuinely curious
that a person has a set of outfits for their cats. Like that is fascinating to me. Like I actually, like my follow-up questions are not like, I guess I need to entertain this person. I'm like, where do you buy cat outfits? Do you make them? Like, and it's not teasing. It's like, people are so interesting. Yeah. And I'm so glad I met you and that you'd be willing to share this hobby of yours. I'm all in. Let's talk about it. And I think that is something that I think you and I connected on that. And the other thing that you and I connected on, and this is sort of in relationship to being willing to give feedback and adapting to feedback, is I think this is before we even met face to face. I think we knew each other and we talked to each other on the phone. This was pre-Zoom, so we didn't even get to like see each other's Zoom all the time. But I was at my old organization and you just gave me like a hotline tip being like, hey, I got to give you feedback about what's going on with someone in your organization so you can do something about it. And that was immediately such a big trust token that instead of you like cutting ties with our organization, you're like, I'm going to reach out to Dallas. I'm going to give her feedback and I'm going to allow her to do something with it. And I was like so impressed that you were able to do that and like felt trust immediately, which is one of the reasons why I knew I could like at least go to you and have this conversation.
That's so cool.
And you're like, I remember none of this.
I actually do. I did really remember that. I actually was trying to think of like if that's a thing that I think that's a thing that I do um not infrequently.
You should.
Right?
Yeah.
Right, but it's like, as long as it's not gossipy, right? As long as it's like
You
I actually like
it was not, I
here's the
didn't
thing.
feel that it was gossipy. It was just like, I'm gonna be honest because I think I care about you and I think that your organization is trying to do cool things, but this specific person is not going to help you in doing that. And I was like, thank you.
So the very best boss I ever had, who was not in higher ed, had been he'd just done a lot of things, including he was the director of a very, very large state agency. He
Okay.
had hundreds and hundreds of reports, and he had, moved very large projects. And one time I like walked into his office, and he sort of shared that he was trying to help somebody else in the organization, and this person was under extreme fire. Like the organization was clearly trying to get rid of her.
Oof.
And I said, Bill, what are you doing about that? Like, how are you like, gosh, that sounds like I suddenly felt like super awkward because I was sort of young and I was like, I don't really know what's going on here.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I called her up and I told her what I think she ought to do to fix it. And I was like, oh, like
How direct of you.
well, but also it was like he basically had decided that like he was going to take right action
Mm-hmm.
no matter like and help this person all the way to the end. And that's what he did. He tried to coach her and help her all the way until she was let go.
Yeah.
I mean, which was like, right? He didn't like push her off the end of the branch. He
Right.
like
Didn't be like, well, that's,
yeah,
lost cause type of thing.
yeah. And so I think that like that was like very formative for me in terms of like how like let's keep giving people like do the best by them, be helpful to them until like if they end up cooking their own goose, like you can't, that's not your responsibility, but
Right.
you can be decent up until that point. So if I'm helping your organization up until the point that I fire you, like that's like that's okay. Like I'm doing the right, I can feel okay about that.
Well, and and we talk about this a lot. This like, I mean, I think you and I sort of witnessed a somewhat like train wrecky when people are just so transactional and it's this like very short term look at relationships. Like, I am going to try to solve this problem in this current timestamp. Done. And then like if you like play that movie to the end, you're at the same campus with them for like years. And then maybe even you move campuses and guess who shows up? That person. Or maybe you have to like, there is no like end scene, right? Like, so I think about that in relation to how this person handled this woman who eventually left the organization, but the entire time building that relationship and like supporting that person. And it makes me think of like, one of my questions I have for you, but I'm going to answer it first.
Okay, go.
Was like, what was like a leadership moment when you realized it was a little bit of a record scratch for me? Like, one, I felt really unprepared. And then two, I realized what my misstep was and I do it completely different now. So when I was at Greener U, I was managing like 7 staff. Like I was, no one, I never took a formal management class. I am curious in people and I like read books all the time. So I kind of read myself into that role. But I remember sitting down with a person who was just kind of like one position under me and was like, I want an opportunity for growth. And in my head was like, well, I'm the next person and I'm not going anywhere. And I think I like fumbled it so badly. I was like, oh, well, I don't have a small organization.
What would you do differently now?
Oh my gosh, so what I do now is I'm like, awesome. Where do you want to be in 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
And my blind sight there was when she said growth, there was a little bit of scarcity mindset. Like, well, there's only one next role, and that's me, and I'm not going anywhere. So unless I get promoted, you can't, like there was the pie was this big, and I was like, now I see that like I expand way beyond the organization I'm with. And I started talking to my team, being like, where do you want to be in 10 years? What tools can we develop so when you leave here, like not pretending that there's going to be loyalty to me or to the organization for any amount of time, but how can I help you develop that skill set while you're here? So when you're ready to go, you have the tools, resources, and are ready to jump because you were given this opportunity. And that conversation led for one of my staff members to say, I actually want to be a writer and I want as much practice copy editing and stuff as possible. And I was like, you want to I have here, 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 here. Like it was all the things because I didn't want to drop this on this person because it was for me, I'm like, oh, I hate doing this stuff. And she's like, this is my jam. So like it actually opened up. She got to say in her like grad school application, like, I am the go-to person for copy editing for strategic plans. And I want to build this skill. And I had another person who
What?
wants to be a facilities manager, like a director. Oh,
Where were you?
where was I? No, I just think we actually have like so much more to support everybody if we think about it beyond the boundaries of our current state, that long-term relationship. And it has allowed me that because I've had these conversations, every one of those staff members let me know like 6 months in advance that they're looking for a new job. Like there was no like, surprise, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Or no one was like squirreling away, like filing job applications. They were like, I want to go to grad school. I think I'm going to apply this year, which means I'll be gone in June. And I was like,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah.
And I honestly shifted all these things for them. And then I asked myself that question, where do I want to be in 10 years? And I remember writing in like the smallest possible font, like start my own business.
Mhm.
And then immediately got sweaty armpits. Because like, oh my God, I said it out loud. This is so hard. And then I had to ask myself, what do I need to do that? So I went to my boss at the time. I was like, can I have my profit and loss statements for my side of the organization? And can we talk more about this business side of things? And I was able to develop that because I was allowed to think beyond the scope of my time
And
at my old organization.
and so that all started with a miscue.
Huge miss, read a book, saw how someone else did it, and was like, I am so embarrassed that that was my response to this person. And then, but since then, because of that belly flop, when you're in the interaction and they leave your office and you're like, oh, that felt shitty. I definitely didn't land that one. But I wasn't exactly sure what else to say. I got the tools. I executed on it. It served them well. It served me well. And I was like, that was amazing.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of different categories. There's like wherever the belly flops and like what have I done about them? What have you done about them? Yeah, like I'm still like, oh, that was so embarrassing. And then there's the like also the like because there's like for me there's another category which is like when have people given me feedback that maybe either was really difficult at the time or I didn't understand at the time.
Yeah.
And then like it's turned out it was like super formative.
Yeah, but was it?
Okay, so one of them was very early on in I started really my post-grad school career was in consulting, and I had to give a presentation to a genuinely executive body of a corporation, and we left the meeting, and my boss looked at me and he goes, "You have to stop giggling when you give presentations," and I was like, I giggled. And I mean, that's like, that was like that was a terrible moment. You're now laughing. That was a terrible moment for me. And it was so important, like in terms of like that early on, like how do you become a professional? And is somebody like helping you do
you
that?
know what he means by giggle? Did he explain it? I'm like picturing you giggling and I can't like, was it just like you kind of laugh at
Nervous laugh.
Nervous laughter.
Nervous laughter.
Okay.
I was giving a presentation. It was like a PowerPoint presentation. It was to like these senior executives. Like, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't think I could like
That's
look at it.
feedback to give to someone. People are used to.
He didn't seem to have any problem giving me the feedback, but
Yeah.
it was like, right, it like really hurt my feelings. And I was like, I think he's right.
Do you think would you have appreciated if he said it in a different way, or did you appreciate that it was like?
I probably would have at the time appreciated it if he had said it in a different way. Today, I'm like, fine, great. I mean, this is the same boss, and this guy, he and I are actually really, really good friends now. But he's the same guy who said to me, like, Dano, you have to stop coming into my office and dropping steaming piles of shit on my desk.
Right.
And I was like, I don't understand that at all. And what he meant was you're not taking your work as far as you could take it before you show it to me. I want you to take it all the way as far as you can possibly take it before you share it with me, which was really good feedback. Again, it was about like becoming a professional. It's like, oh, don't like stop when it gets slightly hard. Like you have to take this as far as you can possibly take it. And if you don't know how to do it, you need to call a friend.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, I'll find a friend. I'll
phone a friend.
So now I phone a friend. I phone a friend is like all the time in my work.
Yeah, I always get excited. I was like, ooh, Dan's got yes.
Right.
Right.
I call you. I've called Rosie who's on this call. I've got like a call, right? Like
yeah.
So that's super, super important. So there's that category. The other category is like people gave me feedback and I didn't understand it at first. And so when I first I was the first sustainability director at Smith, and I came in to talk to the AVP for facilities, who I found very intimidating. And I was like basically complaining to him, as you do, like, well, we're not like doing this energy efficiency thing right. And we should be like taking that one light bulb in that one building and like we should be doing something different. And he kind of looked at me and he was silent. And he's like, what are you doing? He's like, why are you looking at this way?
Yeah.
Like, why aren't you looking at 30 buildings? Why are we even having this conversation? And I went away and I was like, that guy hates sustainability. And then like several years later, I was like, he didn't hate sustainability. He thought I was being ineffective.
Right.
He was trying to teach me to be effective. You have to scale bigger. You have to think larger. Well, that's been unbelievably beneficial to me. It's about like, right, what's important and what's not important, and are you scaling your work at the right level?
Right.
And I was like, and I thought he just hated me.
I mean, to be clear,
what?
To give a feedback to your boss who gave you feedback.
That guy wasn't my boss.
Or people who like,
yeah.
And I talk about this a lot, that not everyone is actually skilled at giving feedback. And so they do drop it on you and it's like clear as mud. And you're like, got it. I'm underperforming? ? Like it's
no,
very rarely does it come with this very, and here are the things that I'm seeing that if you were to do differently would help you resolve that. It's like there's very little coaching that goes along with that.
No, there was zero coaching.
Zero coaching. And I think you are like, you went and you figured it out, and like maybe 10 years later, you're like, the joke finally landed, where you're like, oh, that's the thing.
Right. And part of the joke was I thought that guy hated me. And like he was actually trying to like help me. And I like.
Do you think it would have landed for you to say, hey, break that down for me? Like, I want to understand. It sounds like you walked away being like, this guy hates sustainability. I'm done with, maybe you didn't say I'm done with you, but like, whatever. Versus like, how would you, if someone were to say that to you, like a version of that to you now, would you walk away with it, or would you kind of turn it back being like, can we flip that over and sideways so I can better understand what that feedback is?
I mean, I think I'm much better with that kind of feedback now because that's just a unfortunately, that's one of those things that just comes with years of working, is you become more confident in what you know and what you don't know. And so when somebody like drops something, you're either like, that squares, or that doesn't really square. Tell me more.
What's the feedback in the feedback?
Can I ask you some questions about that?
Right.
And like, I just didn't know how to do that at the time.
It's
I
just-
mean, I was in my 30s. I was like still trying to learn how to be a professional.
It's a skill,
Yeah.
right? It's a skill to be able, I remember reading a good book, Thanks for the Feedback, is basically how do you receive feedback and figure out what to do with it, because you cannot be in control of how someone gives you feedback, but you can be in control of like what you do with it. And there's this idea that like, someone can give you something that's completely untrue, like you were late and you were like, wait, I'm on time, like, and then you realize if you look into that feedback, it actually had a lot to do with like a change in meeting time. And
Mhm.
you're like, oh, okay, in that case. But I think to me that the fact that I just think about the efficiency and the leadership, right? Like if that person had given more context, or if you at the time were given tools to be willing, like to be given the green light to say, that doesn't make sense to me. Can you clarify what it was?
Yeah.
There could have been maybe like,
Oh, I would have gotten a lot out of
you would
it.
have gotten a lot out of it.
Yeah.
I think, because I think about that often when that happens. I think even people who give feedback in the most sort of like, or just tell it how it is, like super direct. What I'm sensing in their undercurrent is like, I'm going to get this off of my plate and onto yours as quickly as possible, which in some ways is preferred than never telling that person, but it isn't actually necessarily instructive to help you know what to do with it, other than that you messed up.
So let me give you another example.
Let's
It's like,
hear it.
so here's another piece of feedback. And this is here because I just gave you like several pieces of feedback delivered maybe in suboptimal
Yeah, so
ways. So let me give you a piece of feedback that I received. It was unbelievably helpful to me. And this only came a few years ago. And was delivered really well.
Okay.
And so this was one of my bosses at Smith said to me, like, Dano, you have built up incredible personal capital and relationships across like the entire organization. Like you have better relationships with the operations part, the student life part, and the academics. There's nobody in this organization who has relationships like you do across all of those
right.
functions.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, thanks so much. That's like really nice. And he's like, so what are you going to do with that?
Right.
I was like, what do you mean? What am I going to do with that? He's like, well, you built up all this like personal capital. How are you going to spend it? And I was like,
I'm a saver.
I was like, seriously. I was like, no, you don't understand.
It's a rainy day fund.
I just get capital. That's what I do. I'm really good at it. I get capital. I never spend capital because I don't know why.
Likability. You told me this in one of our prep session, that one of the things that you is like wanting to be liked.
Yeah.
And like you get liked by
right. And the
gaining
the strength,
spending.
Yeah, the strength of that is like you get to be liked. The weakness is maybe you're not using all of your leadership tools. And so what happened subsequently to that was we had a pandemic.
Yes, I've
right?
heard about
And
this.
the same boss came back to me and was like, Dano, remember that thing I said to you about how you have better relationships with all these different things? I really need somebody to help Smith College like get through the pandemic. It's going to be like 3-4 weeks, but like you could just help us interpret the policy and like help. All right. And then like 2 years later, it was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Except that in the like to manage through the pandemic, I had to apply leadership skills that I was heretofore not doing. And some of those included I had to throw elbows.
Yeah.
I had to just tell people, this is the institutional decision. You're not going to like it. And this is how we're doing it. And I hear that you're complaining, but we're moving forward now. And I was not comfortable doing that because I was just gaining the chips.
Yeah. You're like,
I wasn't spending the chips.
Right.
And then suddenly I had to spend the chips on behalf of the institution to be effective.
How does it feel? Because I'm going through my head and like the work that I'm doing right now to recognize that desire to be likable by everybody is not necessarily in line with being a true leader in what you believe in.
I don't know. I like part of me is like, am I just becoming like a cranky old man? Like, I don't really care what they think anymore. Like, I'm just gonna go do the right thing.
The Muppet guys.
Yeah, exactly. Waldorf and Statler. Love those guys.
Right?
I mean, they're cranky, but they're funny.
They are funny. No, but because I think about this a lot, and I mean, this again has to do with books that I read, and like, if I am liked by everybody, I am potentially like, I'm not doing what I want to do well, because there's no way that if I'm pushing change forward, that everyone's like, that's great, right? And so if I am so hesitant to be as full as I want to show up, then am I actually showing up earnestly?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I, in putting together, starting my business and putting together the Growing Trust series, where I'm like recording myself and be like, people should watch this. Or, writing a blog about something that's really important to me. I always am like, can like feel like my neck is like up to here, and I push send, and then I like stand up and I go, oh, I did it. So if anyone gets my newsletters, let you know that is like a big hurdle because of my shadow side of like taking up too much space. But the reality is like, yes, I think this is important to say, and I want to say it. And if someone is like, I don't like it, then I can say, cool, you don't have to like it. And that has been a growth area for me. And I actually think once I started leaning into it, it felt freeing. And I'm still working on it. But like, and I think you and I talked about this, that as you are, moving up in your role at the institution, you have to make a decision that is going to piss off people. And hopefully the roots are deep enough where that you can both piss someone off, but still be respected in your decision.
Yeah. So I think here's a more sincere answer to your question.
Okay. Than
Waldorf and Statler.
Yeah.
Totally.
That wasn't
totally Googling that afterwards. I think when I was younger, as a young professional, like when I would get like agitated or angry, I would like have a tendency to like lash out and just be mean.
Yeah.
Like not nice.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
I haven't seen that version of you.
It's happened.
Yeah.
It's like some of those belly flop moments are because I just was like mean.
Yeah.
Like not nice, not helpful.
Yeah.
And I think that was like some like evil stew of like anxiety and self-doubt and like all the things that lead people to be mean.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of then I was like, okay, well now I just have to make sure that everybody likes me. So so now I've got to like overcorrect, and everybody's got to like me. Everybody's got to like me. I want to, I'm collecting all the chips. And then like spending the political capital and like being comfortable spending the political capital. I hate to say it, but I think it's just like practice. It's like, and somehow like the pandemic forced me to practice doing it.
Yeah.
Guess what, everybody? Now we have to wear masks. It's going to be great. You're going to love it.
Imagine you too.
And actually, what was even worse than that was, guess what, everybody? We're going to like not require everybody to wear masks now. And then like people like really lost their minds.
Oh man.
So like it somehow the practicing of it.
Yeah.
But practicing it of not like, it wasn't a lash out. It was actually considered direction that I knew was going to disappoint people, and I was going to deliver those messages. Like I just got more comfortable doing it.
Okay.
So now, like when I changed institutions, now I'm like, I don't actually save up as many political chips. I try to build relationships. I try to understand other people's needs, but I'm much quicker to spend political capital than I used to be.
And I think this all sounds transactional, but you're not transactional. We're like talking about spending these relational chips and stuff. But I think the reality is that you are deeply relational and you're able to say, this isn't going to work out and here's why, and I know it's disappointing. Right? Like I think there's a little, and I think this is the thing that I'm realizing too, is that I can say this is going to be opposite of what you wanted, and that is going to feel shitty. And we're still moving forward. And while I'm moving forward, I'm going to still check in with you because I know that felt shitty for you. And like that ability to still, I think we get uncomfortable with that. So one of the things we do is like, forget them. Haters are gonna hate. I'm just gonna move forward. But I think the reality is this isn't like internet trolls, right? These are people that you actually show up with meetings and like need to interact with. So I think part of it is like, I'm gonna give space for you to feel upset instead of like kind of box you out emotionally or in a meeting, and allow us to still work well, even if we have a difference of opinion.
I think if I'm working with somebody on a one-on-one basis and it's something about like, I know you wanted to work on this project, but that's actually not an institutional priority and you're going to be disappointed about that. I think I would handle it the way you're talking about. I'm often in situations where I'm in meetings and there's lots of people and we are announcing things that they're not going to like.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't really spend a lot of time going, faculty member, I know you really wanted to park in this parking lot, but that's simply not available to you anymore. And I know you're probably having some disappointed feelings about that.
I know I'm thinking about.
And there's a lot of that. Like there's a lot of like, I'm just throwing an elbow and it's in a big group and like we're just going this way and that's what's good for the institution.
Right.
And like I'm not spending a lot of time.
So, but that being said,
because it's a different context.
It's a different context, but I can imagine that if there was, of a specific faculty member who was making the loudest noise on that, like, and you ran into that person in the hallway, you wouldn't be like, hello, you would be like, hey, Sam, it's not, there isn't this, like, we are now adversaries.
We are now enemies.
You're just like, you disagreed with me on that. And then you like keep going. And I think that to me is like what I'm trying to
that's absolutely right. And that's a great example. Cause I would still, it's funny because I would say hello to them. They don't always say hello to me.
It doesn't matter.
Whatever. Yeah. Like truly, like don't care. I will like warmly greet them. Now, if they want to engage me on the subject again, I might excuse myself quickly.
Right. Boundary setting.
Yeah.
You're like, we've talked about this. I was clear. You're allowed to disagree with me, but that's the decision that we went forward with. Okay, we actually, if you can imagine, we have 10 minutes left.
Holy cow.
Okay. Holy cow. So we have to get serious and start the chess chats. It's a joke.
What's that?
Now we're going to start the conversation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we've been talking the whole time. So
that's why I was confused.
That was my belly flop.
You just did not. Dallas, I'm going to give you some feedback.
Okay.
That joke just didn't land, and I'm sure you're going to see in the playback my eyes just like. So sorry.
I'm stuck.
I know you wanted it to go better.
I am actually so okay with rolling with it. There's so many times where things don't land and I'm just like, moving on.
I think that is genuinely that is actually a super important professional skill because I say things all the time that don't land. And it's like, now we're just going to keep going.
Captain's log.
Yeah.
Didn't work out.
Yeah.
So I think, one of the questions that I have for you is as people think about this work, right? Like where you talked about sort of hacks that you've used to allow yourself to kind of get over some of the challenges that you have faced, to be a leader. If you could have introduced some of these hacks earlier on to a younger version of yourself, basically what leadership advice would you give early mid-20s Dano that you hope would serve you well today?
Honestly, mid-20s Dano was a little bit of a train wreck. So, I often tell students who are coming to me and they're 22 and they're like, I need to go find a job. And I'm being super functional about how I do this. And can you give me advice? And I'm like, well, the first thing is I didn't really have a job until I was 30. So you're going to be fine. Yeah. I call it 7 years wandering in the wilderness. So,
right. Yeah.
Semi-employment and, so I think so the things that I tell them often are like, look, you don't get too wrapped around the axle around that this is exactly the choice you make around work is exactly the right thing.
Right.
Like, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good enough. Go do something for a while. You can certainly change. Like, I have
Yeah.
changed my job and my industry and my context a lot.
Right.
And like, it's, it's actually something that's, as an American, it's much easier than it is in other places. The
Right.
UK, you can't really move sideways through your career. They don't like it. It's very uncomfortable.
Huh.
So, like don't get too wrapped up. But I was very wrapped up in like I have to do the right thing and it has to fit my values perfectly. And had the voice of my dad in my head who was
Yeah.
basically critical of everything, therefore I could do nothing.
Right.
It was really challenging. So that's a big thing. Some of it though has been like I think of it's developmental. Like some of the things that I can
Yeah.
do today, I'm not sure I could have advised my younger self to do them because they
Feel like, wait, what?
like, what are you in fact talking about?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is practice, practice, practice in some of the ways, right? I mean, I think I actually, this sounds funny, but like I gave myself advice when I was early on in my career, mostly because I was asked what my career goals were, and I was given like three choices: salary, title, or something. All I knew is
Fame.
fame, right? And I was like, those are my choices. And then I bristled, and they're like, what's wrong with that? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm bristling because something that felt like ill advice from someone. And I did what I do best, and like journaled and was like, well, I got really angry about what the heck is under that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and this is actually, Dano asked me like, well, why do you want to have this trust chat? What was your pitch to try to like get him to have this conversation? And I think what happens so often is when people think about their careers, they see someone in a position or a place and say, oh, I want to do that. And or they like, I want to make X amount of money, or I want to do these things. But like I was concerned that I would get if I saw a Dano and I was like, that's what I want to be, and I spent all my time and I finally got into this role and I was like, well, that sucked. I hated every interaction. I didn't like this. I stopped doing this thing because I knew I needed to stop doing this thing that I really liked in order to do that. And I got here and I'm miserable, right? And I was like, I don't want to do that. And so I had this moment back then, and I think about it often of just like how happy I was that I like thought about it this way. And this is why I wanted to talk about these moments, because it's all of the inner work like world is like I just wanted to know that like I was, showing up excited and doing my 100%, that people could rely on me and I was respected because I was being respectful. Like that was it. And it went from this lagging indicator that like I could only know how it went after the fact
Mm-hmm.
versus a leading indicator where I could do this like daily kind of like tuning and checkpoint. And I could be like, am I happy? Okay. Did I show up today? Well, yeah, okay. And then I can like kind of do through that. And at the same time, I wanted to make sure that I could do that same thing with my friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't work so hard to get to a certain part in my career that I neglected other relationships in life.
Yeah, and I think I just said this to somebody the other day on the phone. Like, I think we all struggle, right? It's that unless you're like a Zen Buddhist who's really good at being in the moment,
Right.
it's really hard to like be in the moment in your job and your career and to like think about what you want to do next and to have those like align. Yeah. And to do that well and effectively. I think it's genuinely difficult for humans.
It is.
Like we're very like it's either now or it's like not now, like in the future. But it's hard to like say I'm on a trajectory and here's sort of the mileposts.
And I think just like being okay, knowing that like as you were saying, like you couldn't be where you are. Like even the advice that you could bring back to yourself at that time would have been maybe not super useful because you
Yeah,
needed
it's like,
experience.
hey kid, you need some more miles under the tires.
And they're like, great.
And they're like, thanks for nothing.
I love the fact that you like jump in a DeLorean, go travel back in time to say, I got some advice for you. You just gotta like, you need more.
Get a job, kid.
And then you leave and you're like, that's it?
Like, what? You came all the way from the future to tell me that? And don't listen to dad.
Yeah. So I think that's probably a good place to end. Is how worthless of advice you would give to your to your past self. I sincerely want to thank you for being the first person to jump on with this and to do it so enthusiastically. And I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. And I appreciate all of you. I just love seeing all the faces coming in. And if you have any thoughts or ideas, I just want to let people know that the next Trust Chat that's coming up is going to be with Megan Faye Zenheiser, who is the executive director at ASHI. You may have seen her before. She's lovely, and we are going to be able to talk about all the things that honestly we talk about when we run in the morning at ASHI. We're even joking around getting like one of those like treadmills for desks so we could both still be running to have that.
That's embarrassing.
But then we thought, well, we were more concerned about people's motion sickness than us being embarrassed. But so that's going to be the next one. Azanta dropped the link, so be sure to register. It's going to be a great one, and you guys were awesome. Dano, you're awesome.
Thank you.
And we'll post this online too. So if you want to listen again or share with someone, please do.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.